Some engines don't need to be mythologized. Just look at the year they were built. Look at how many served in real life. And look at how many are still running today. And you already understand. This episode begins with a name like that. A machine that turned durability into the standard of an entire era. (1906), when people made the whole engine spin to save itself. Back when automobiles were still young, the hard part wasn't whether they could go fast. The hard part was that they would overheat after a short run. Heat caused vibration, leaks, loss of power, and constant minor failures. The kind of thing that made users give up before they even had a chance to fall in love. Radiators back then were heavy and troublesome. Pipes were prone to rust, and every time the engine heated up, it felt like the car was fighting itself. Adams Farwell chose a path completely different from the crowd. Instead of only letting the crankshaft rotate as usual, they made the entire engine assembly rotate. It sounds like a gimmick, but it hit the two most painful problems dead on. First was cooling. A rotating engine creates its own airflow, fanning across hot parts and reducing dependence on a bulky water system. Second was smoothness. The rotating mass itself becomes a kind of living flywheel, storing inertia and reducing jerkiness as the pistons hammer back and forth. What matters most in this story isn't how widely the car was adopted. It's the spirit of solving a very real problem with a bold turn. Change the way it works, and you change the quality of life. That idea feels like a warning shot. A few decades later, another technology would also have to prove itself in a way no one expected. Diesel would step onto the racetrack. 1931. Diesel goes racing and wins by refusing to stop. In the early 1930s, many people still saw diesel as farm machinery. Durable but slow. Practical but with no glamour. Bringing diesel to a race back then was like sending a grease-stained mechanic into a gala. People expected him to look out of place. But diesel didn't need to look right. It only needed to work right. What diesel does best is hold its rhythm. It burns by compression and heat. So if the system is built correctly, the longer it runs, the more it settles into order. Stable temperature, stable lubrication, and most importantly, fewer stops for minor annoyances. On a race course, that is a massive psychological advantage. Spectators are trained to watch speed. Engineers watch something else. Does the car keep diving into the pits? Does it fade halfway through? Does it hold a steady rhythm? A diesel finishing the distance with stubborn consistency forced people to change their angle of view. Power isn't only about surging for a few seconds. Sometimes, power is reaching the end without complaining. From there, diesel shed the slow label and became a technology of endurance. And once you believe diesel is built for the long road, you see its value most clearly where it works every day. Factories, pump stations, harbors, places that live on a steady rhythm. The 1930s. Slow rhythm feeds factories, sharp rhythm feeds work. In workshops and pumping stations of that era, people didn't need thrills. They needed a machine that ran like a clock, day after day. Large industrial engines like Fairbanks Morse and many of their contemporaries lived by a slow-to-last philosophy. Stand beside one and you hear it immediately. A deep, firing beat landed solid like a hammer. Then a big flywheel is turning slowly and heavily, keeping the shaft from jerking. A powerful hit is stored in inertia and released gradually. That's why belts don't stutter, generators don't sag, and the whole system runs smoothly. But diesel doesn't have only one voice. In that same period, two-stroke Detroit diesel brought a completely different personality. More compact, quicker response, and that high blower whine makes it sound far more sharp-edged. If a slow engine is like an old craftsman working a long shift, a two-stroke is like a strong young worker. Tasks are handled fast, and the sound speaks louder too. Choosing one rhythm is choosing that kind of life. Slow rhythm for durability, fast rhythm for flexibility. The beauty is that just by listening, you can feel what the design is prioritizing. And when the world enters a period pushed to its limits, those priorities shift. Sometimes people don't only need durability. They need power, heat tolerance, load tolerance, and pressure tolerance without negotiation. (1939 to 1942). Power forced to grow up. Griffin and HL230. There are periods when an engine isn't allowed to be pretty or easygoing. It has to be stronger, more durable, and able to survive conditions no one would normally demand of a machine. In the sky, a V12 like the Rolls-Royce Griffin carries exactly that spirit. Dense firing, strong pull in the low range, the kind of sound that tells you it was built to carry heavy work. It isn't something you enjoy for the tone. It's something that lets a pilot believe there is still a way home, as long as everything is operated correctly. The right temperature, the right oil, the right limits. On the ground, another V12 like the Maybach HL230 is trapped inside a hot compartment, hauling a massive block of steel through mud, up grades across brutal terrain. Here, strong is only the necessary condition. The sufficient condition is heat tolerance and load tolerance. The HL230 has a reputation for being temperamental. When the temperature climbs, you must know how to ease off. A strange note. You must know when to stop. The point of this era isn't the numbers, it's discipline. Those who understand the engine keep it alive. Those who push too hard get an immediate answer in breakdowns. If you're the kind of person who can hear an engine and guess its health, know when it's running strong and when it's bracing under load, then hit follow on Steam Engine so we can keep this rhythm of passion going together. By the way, among the V12s we just mentioned, which voice do you prefer? The dense signature firing of the Rolls-Royce Griffin? Or the hard-edged steel growl of the Maybach HL230? Leave your opinion in the comments, and we'll prioritize a deep dive into the machine the community calls out the most. (1949). Cold seas and the price of speed. Zvezda M50. At sea, you hear an engine differently than you do on land. It doesn't just fire, It growls. A long, dense sound, like the whole hull is grinding its teeth. High-speed engines like the Zvezda M50 come with a very blunt trade-off. If you want to sprint across cold water, you pay for it in fuel and in how hard the system has to take a beating. Salt clings to metal. Vibration never really stops. Cold wind makes everything contract, and if the oil thickens even slightly, you feel the slow response immediately. Out at sea, the scary part is not running out of fuel in front of your eyes. The scary part is when the engine changes its voice. If the rhythm stops being even, the operator knows something is wrong. The temperature isn't stable, lubrication has an issue, or the load is changing in an abnormal way. On land, you still have time to guess. At sea, guessing wrong gets paid for in minutes and hours. That's why engines like this are cared for like something that is not allowed to get moody. Hold temperature, hold oil, hold rhythm, and especially make sure it can respond fast when you need to accelerate. When you hear that, you realize speed is only the surface. Underneath is operating discipline and environmental toughness. And speaking of hostile environments, cold on land is no less brutal. Sometimes winning or losing comes down to one thing. Can it start or can't it? (1958). In the cold, just getting it to start is already a win. T55. In freezing weather, an engine can become lazy in the most literal physics sense. Oil thickens, batteries weaken, metal contracts. Friction rises everywhere. With the T55, nobody counts on luck. They prepare a starting method so weather can't trap them. Compressed air start. It's very down to earth. Compressed air spins the engine. Once it spins with enough rhythm, it catches on its own. Then the rough initial growl gradually settles into an even beat. That moment when the even beat appears is when people finally exhale, because they know the system is alive. That mindset says a lot about the era. Design favors certainty in the worst-case scenario. It doesn't have to be delicate, it has to be reliable. Beyond compressed air starting, there are other support methods when needed. As long as the vehicle doesn't sit dead because of one cold morning, it's a kind of practicality with no romance, but it keeps a heavy machine ready. After the start no matter what story, Railroading shows you a different kind of durability. Not fighting a cold, but surviving a steady rhythm every day. Push, pull, go, return, repeat. (1955 to 1966). Industrial yards and a familiar scream. John Fowler and EMD 645. Railroads have jobs almost nobody notices, but without them, everything jams solid. A shunter like a John Fowler is exactly that kind of work. It doesn't need high speed. It needs strong, tractive effort at low speed and tight control. In a cramped yard, one coupler clack means you must manage force correctly. Push too hard and you slam the cars. Push too softly and you stall. This kind of locomotive is like a platform worker, rarely named but working every single day. Then comes a completely different voice. EMD 645. This is what makes many people remember railroading through sound alone. A steady, stable scream dragging a long, consistent past like it's pulling the whole morning with it. Stand close and you feel a light vibration under your feet. Not a scary vibration, a work is happening vibration. The beauty of the 645 is the feeling of trust. It doesn't need to perform. It just pulls. It just runs. It just carries long shifts. Until people get so used to it, they treat it like the background of daily life. From the yard to the main line, one thing becomes obvious. A good machine usually doesn't force you to notice it because of failures. You only notice when it stops doing its job. And that's exactly where the big industrial iron blocks enter the story. The kind where one silence can panic an entire place. (1938 to 1977). The toughest, stubborn machines, and you can hear they'll keep running. There is a kind of engine that makes you feel calm from the very first beat. Slow running, big flywheels. A thup, thup firing. You can count one by one. European industrial engines like Duval fall into that group. No need to scream, no need to rush. Just lock into rhythm and carry the load. Stand beside it and you can hear immediately whether it's healthy or tired. Is the beat even? Is the tone unusually dull? It's like a large clock, not flashy in a glamorous way, but it makes people believe. Then some engines are even older in ritual. Hot bulb. To make it live, you must torch it hot, wait until the metal glows red, then turn the flywheel so it can catch its own rhythm. It sounds exhausting, but that very simplicity lets it burn bad fuel and work in places of scarcity. It teaches a very real lesson. Some technologies last, not because they are modern, but because they can survive reality. And when we talk about surviving, it's hard to ignore the Caterpillar D399 class, a mechanical V16 carrying work in tugboats, drilling rigs, backup generators, and machines you only remember when they stop. It doesn't need to sound beautiful. It needs to fire, hold rhythm, and drag an entire system through hard moments. The more I listen, the more I believe something very simple. These machines pull you in because they are real. No electronic shell hiding anything. Only metal, oil, heat, and a working rhythm that tells the truth. The Detroit 271 screams high like a power saw and reminds you what stubbornness sounds like. The EMD 645 rumbles steadily like a promise made of rails. If you've ever stood next to a running engine block, try describing the one sound or vibration you remember most. Is it the thup-thup of an old generator or the ear-ripping roar of a two-stroke? Share that feeling in the comments below. That is perfect material for us to build the next episodes. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Steam Engine so you don't miss the legendary ignition beats. For the next episode, what do you want to hear? A diesel that screams raw, a hot bulb you have to torch red, or a tank V12 that growls like thunder? Give us your order right down below.